let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I'll ask is, what brought you to Archlifter?
Well, I have scoliosis, and I've been in tons of car accidents, motorcycle accidents, people accidents, just things that didn't help my neck any, and just constant neck problems. The one that kind of lit the worst of it was I was getting into my car, and another car struck me from behind, hitting my car into me. And the frame of my car hit me in the back of the head and the neck, and it just completely just thrashed me. It was just, I'd get chronic headaches and no relief. I constantly wanted to put my hands under my neck like this and lift, but it really was not at the right angle. So I started using like those ab bands, and I was just wrapping them around at the base of my sphenoid bone and the back of my head. So coming back this way, and then just kind of trying to dangle there without putting any pressure on my jaw. And my wife's like, "You're gonna kill yourself or something." And so she started looking for something that was going to be better, right? And then she found, I don't even know how she found it. She found Archlifter. I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's it. I want that." And so we, I don't know, maybe like 6 months later got it, something like that. So I beat the snot out of my body with these tools.
Okay.
And like my spine would be straight for a short time, like considerably straighter than how crooked it was. But it, like you could just feel the impingement in those certain like apex parts of the curve. And nothing I could do, nothing chiropractors could do, no inversion table or sky hooks or hanging could ever get that, like the vault, between like C7, T1, but realistically from like T6 to about C2, you just can't really get those things to decompress. And you can sometimes get the Atlas and the occiput to decompress, but not like you can with the Archlifter, right? That's your body weight. You can slowly elongate those muscles and all that area around that whole locked position. And the first time I put like full weight into the Archlifter, Archlifter,
Yeah.
Archlifter. I had mobilized the whole body, like even like the front of the neck, really just elongating every muscle, just getting it ready to dead hang. And I took traction, to the point of where like I felt the decompression. And then I just let go, kind of like a hangman's drop. Probably not the best to recommend to people, but it adjusted me from the tip of my sacrum all the way up every single vertebrae of my spine to my occiput. And it felt like my spinal cord shifted. And it was just immediate relief. My right leg would always turn into external rotation. From that point on, my legs were symmetrical. My hips were normal. My mid T spine, like that T5 to like T7 area, just didn't feel trapped forward. I could go into proper extension, lateral flexion in both directions, and I had no real issue. And, it was not just a one and done. It was long-term use of it that maintained that, but I'd never been able to get adjusted in that area or ever have that type of relief from really anything other than chiropractic, but even deeper than chiropractic because it was my own body weight. And yeah, that was kind of the beginning domino to allowing me to go further into the unwinding of my spine.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear it's been so helpful for you. You mentioned like you have scoliosis and that you've been in a lot of accidents and stuff. Is that because of work or just randomly like throughout life?
The scoliosis?
Or I guess I should say whatever issues that brought you to Archlifter initially. So it sounds like it was a combination of like the neck pain with maybe
the neck pain, the idea of just traction for scoliosis. Like I'd always ask chiropractors, can't you just like stand here and just like elongate me? And there's never really a good angle that you could do that on. And the fact that you're using an ability to hang without compromising any joints, that's that's it, right? So I actually I took this concept to a couple chiropractors, and I was like, look, can you stick your fingers in my mouth, grab me by the back of my head, and just yank me up? And they're like, I don't know. So I was like, can I do it to you? And they're like, yeah. And so I adjusted a couple of my chiropractors, one in Florida and one out here. And then they're like, that's amazing. And I was like, I'd love to take credit for it, but I dangle by my mouth by this cool device. And that's what gave me the idea. And like one of the chiropractors that I showed this technique to teaches at whatever the college is in Northern California or Central California. But just it blew us my mind. They don't do that as an adjustment, or they didn't. Now a lot of people are doing it. And if you look at oh gosh, I don't even know the guys. I don't know whether it's a TikTok or an Instagram, but for a while it was like a huge trending adjustment on the chiropractic little social media things because it's just a random, no, normally they use a towel or some kind of rotational adjustment, and it was just kind of cool. But yeah, thanks to Devin, right? Is the guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Never would have ever thought of that hadn't it been for him. So
Yeah.
kudos to that guy.
Wow. And you mind if I ask, so you mentioned you went to chiropractic that gave you some relief. What
Yeah.
did you try anything else, or were you ever recommended any kind of more serious procedure or anything like that?
Oh gosh. I mean, the degree of my scoliosis when I was 16 was horrible. It was like 38 degrees, 42 degrees, and 48 degrees. And like that's pretty severe. And I saw Dr. Brown in Newport Beach, California. He was an old guy back then. I'd be surprised if he's still around today. And he gave me the best advice that I've ever had for scoliosis was I can put these rods in your back and your life will suck for the rest of your life because your body's still wrong. However, it's going to be forced to be in this fixed position. Or you're young, figure it out. The only person that's ever going to figure it out has scoliosis. So good luck. A genius. I was like, oh, wow. All right. I can be crooked and mobile or straight and fixed, but it's just pliable. The first time I saw a dead animal and all of its bones were detached from itself as it's been rotting in the forest for years, made me realize, okay, we're just held together by soft tissue, right? The bones are just free floating, held together by soft tissue. So we've got to be pliable in some way or another. So if we could allow that long-term elongation of things that are short and tonify those weak things, we should be able to make change. Maybe not make something perfect, but we should be able to do something. And I actually have a series of pictures of my spine I can send to you that'll show you like the progression. It's not just the arch lifter that has made the difference. It's all of the things. It's the when you look up Mobility WOD Battlestar, it's an A-framed roller with 3 different pieces to it, and I've used those things to the point of literally blacking out trying to fix this body. And in the combination with filleting every muscle group, even down through the arms, and then using the arch lifter, the difference is you're either fighting against things that are too tight to change, and you're just going to subluxate something that's willing to give instead of something that needs to go. And whether I've used the arch lifter on just a dead hang or on like an ab band, like the big giant rubber bands, in every which way, it's beneficial. So between the elongation of it, using the ab bands, I don't have like a pulley system, so using the ab bands themselves have been really helpful. But in the combination of using like the arc lifter and then strengthening with the iron neck, I don't really have neck problems anymore. I just have. And then actually a lot of times when I use the arc lifter now, it's fairly infrequent. I use it probably maybe max 3 times a month, but it's when I've done like a lot of upper trap work or just training the front of the neck, and it just feels good at this point. Nothing really even adjusts. Like I used to adjust every time, and now everything just feels right. And I don't have any fire from impingement in my T-spine like I used to. And again, it's not the only thing that changed it, but it is the largest domino that started the rest of the effect. Because once that subluxation in the mid-spine was able to stay gone, it just fixed everything. And then, when you're pinned like that, your ribs go out constantly. So I used to have to go to the chiropractor twice a week with the kind of work that I do. I do body work. It's close to rolfing, so it's a lot of core strength. And with having this tool at my disposal, shoot, I see a chiropractor maybe once a month at the max, and that's just because I do other things at the chiropractor. And yeah, it's been amazing.
Wow. Really happy to hear that. You mentioned, so you're only using it like maybe 3 times per month now.
Yeah.
When you first started, it sounded like you got that sense of initial relief when you first used the product.
Yeah.
What was your usage like when you first began?
Okay. Well, I don't recommend what I do to anybody because I know my body really well. Like I can breathe and tell you what's going where. But I used it every day, a little bit. It was kind of like, well, it'd kind of be an arc up here, and I'd use just a little bit, traction this way, traction that way. And then on Saturdays, I'd spend about 3 hours from about 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. on my body. And it would be right after all of the mobility. I'd do a good drop on that neutral position to where a little bit of extension, and it would unlock everything through the neck. And then I would go ahead and strength train, and then I would hook it up to one of the ab bands and just let it traction me at that point. And then changing positions of wear. So basically Monday through Friday, I would use it enough to stretch kindly, but not to really have full weight on it. And then Saturday, I'd go for glory, and that was probably for the better. I would say from the beginning of 2019 or whenever I got it through 2019, and just the whole year was pretty steady like that. That was the year of transformation for my spine, and it was unable to happen until I had that, because I could do so many things, but then I'd loosen up the wrong thing and then get stuck, and then I'm stuck until I go see the chiropractor. And that kind of gave me the ability to adjust myself, or let myself adjust, not really self-adjust. But
Do you have the first model or the second model? Do you happen to know whether does it have like a big black strap attached to it, or
a big what?
Black like strap that you use for the back of your neck?
Yeah, I can show you actually real quick.
Sure, yeah, that'd be helpful.
If there's an updated model, I would massively like to see what it looks like now. Okay. So this
Okay,
one?
yeah, you have the Type-2. Very cool though to see the setup.
So it depends, on what the protocol is, whatever I'm doing for that day.
Right.
But I'll hook it to this, and I'll come at an angle with the head kind of in this position. And then I'll drop down towards, pulling more into that T-spine area. And I think one of the biggest things is the ability to elongate the longest coli and capitis muscles. Sorry, it's too hot out there. With that kind of traction, because, you really, aside from compression, individually, per vertebrae with a little bit of stretch, you're not going to really stretch those.
Right.
And I think a lot of neck problems actually are the front of the spine, because we can't get easily to the front of the neck, and nobody really knows how, or that there's even muscles there. And then worse than that, you can't really get deep behind the lungs, unless somebody's doing like a ultrasound guided procaine injection. And even then, most people won't go on the front of the transverse process of your spine because they're going to get a lung. And then like even your psoas, you can use a psoas, right? But how are you going to really elongate a psoas? And when you're stretching on, just like that full spinal traction with that that device, it pulls on everything.
Yeah.
But if your body is fully mobilized to where it can pull on things that are not just the tight muscles. And so,
Right.
Yeah.
Almost done. That we really appreciate, how
Yeah.
Deb, you're helping us. You mentioned like you had a pretty bad posture angle, a pretty bad like curvature of your
Oh yeah.
your scoliosis. Have you noticed any change in that posture?
Oh my gosh.
I know you've done all kinds
Massive.
of
So we own a wellness center, and it's primarily based on therapeutic massage. And so I've had the same crew working on me for years, like almost a decade at this point. And I hadn't seen anybody in a while. We had moved away for a while. And when I came back, they're like, holy shit, your back is basically straight. Like, yeah, like it's not even a thing anymore. And like we went camping with one of our therapists, and I'm sleeping in a total crap bed in a yurt, right? And I don't remember what her and her husband were. I don't know if it was an air mattress or just a cot or something like that. But afterwards, she came over and she's like, "Hey, I need help. My body sucks." And she's like, "You seem fine." I'm like, "Yeah, dude, I'm great. I haven't really had a problem." And you know, she uses that Archlifter every once in a while when she comes over. But it's hard for a lot of people to really dial in if it's not at their house and they can tinker with it all the time.
Right. Definitely. To us, that's like one of the main advantages is, you don't have to go to the chiropractor every time to
Yeah.
do something like this. Makes
Yeah.
a big difference. One last thing I'll ask you is there any parts of the Archlifter that have been difficult to use or that you wish would be improved on?
So I don't have feedback on what would be better, but the positions at the top, if it was easier or quicker to adjust, like where it dangles at the top, it would probably be easier for people that are beginning with it. Like I have my positions dialed in. I know, like I have little marks up there with the marker. The mouthpiece, it should not be squared anywhere. It should be rounded that way that there's no sharp 90-degree angle that can poke into a tooth. As far as like even maybe a plasti dipped coating of some kind, or like a harder plastic, instead of it just being powder coated, it should be some type of plastic on the edge of the metal. That way nobody goofs with a tooth, and maybe even a denser silicone that the mouth goes onto. Then on the back of the neck, I think that it should have those either the silicone molded dots into the fabric that provide a little bit of traction. Because people with either a lot of hair down here, or just grease ball necks, like it just slips a little too much and it just becomes uncomfortable. Then they get that gag kind of reflex. And then the other thought is maybe and he's a dentist, right? If I recall.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so do you guys do custom molded mouthpieces?
He's done it for a few people in the past. Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know if there could be like a generic mouthpiece that keeps people from it sliding back into their throat. So I've had a couple of people that have used it and gone into the gag reflex, but that's just angle, right? Like that's getting the angle. And a lot of times when people start to use it, the first thing that happens is their SCMs lock up. And so it puts them into this like this position, and then they just slide right down. And there's something called an ARP wave, ARPWAVE. It sends specific frequencies through your muscles. So people are like, oh, it's like a tens unit. Yeah, it's like a tens unit if a Tesla is compared to a horse and buggy, right? Like it's a whole different thing. And in using that while hanging, that changed a lot of things. So it's like when you start stacking different treatments, it's like just supercharging what that can do. And yeah, that was an amazing kind of breakthrough. It's like once you get to a certain point, you gotta tinker because your body adapts. And once you start doing that, it changes a lot. So the mouthpiece, the neck strap, and then an easier adjustment for the top. And I like where you can kind of hang on the sides. That works really good for people. I don't think there's anything else I would really change about it.
Yeah, no worries. That's plenty. Thank you so much. Like
Yeah, man.
I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording for now.
Yeah.